Hey guys, how's it going today? We are going to be learning how to do monohybrid Punnett squares today. So we've been talking a little bit about genetics in class. I'm just going to go through this really simple paper with you guys. It has a little bit of vocabulary, which is nice just as a refresher, and then some examples that I'm going to do with you. This is to go in addition to a regular genetics lecture, but this is just how to actually do these monohybrids. I want to make sure you have it under your belt before we move on to dihybrids next week. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do here is we're just going to find the word that is described by the definitions here, okay? So the very first definition it gives us is that genes of an organism that are alike, okay? So when we have things that are alike, this is also like that they are like the same, okay? And we have a prefix that we know that means same, and that is the prefix of homo, and this word is homozygous. This means that we have the same genes or the same alleles, and some examples of that would be like if we're using the letter G, you can have these alleles that are the same, big G, or little g. We will get into that a little bit later, but that is just an example there for you, okay? The next one we're going to talk about is something that covers a weaker gene, okay? And that is going to be our dominant trait here. It's going to cover the weaker gene, and it is always written as an uppercase letter, like a capital G. Okay, that is always written as an uppercase letter, and it covers up our recessive traits. The next word we're looking for is something that describes an organism that has different genes, and we have a prefix that means different, and that is hetero. Hetero means different. So our little example of this could be using the letter G, a big G and a little g. Those are different as one is capitalized and one is lowercase. So this is our dominant and our recessive trait. Okay, so that one is going to be F here. The actual genetic makeup of an organism is next, and that we're looking for the, I call this just letters. We're looking for the letters, and that is the genotype. Okay, so the three genotypes can look like this, or this, or this. Those are the only three genotypes, and those are the letters as the actual genes for our traits. The next one is the physical appearance of an organism, and this is what it looks like. The physical appearance is what it looks like. That's going to be the phenotype, and you're going to think that the phenotype is the physical trait. You can look at someone and see their phenotype, but you cannot tell their genotype just from looking at them. So the phenotype is physical, it's what you see. Okay, and then lastly, the weaker gene that can be covered. Okay, that's going to be the recessive, and it's going to be always a lowercase letter written as, in this example, little g. Okay, so we have all of our information here. Okay. Next, we are going to go down and look at some Punnett squares. Okay, so it's telling us to use the letter G. Okay, and it's telling us that a capital G is dominant, and it's telling us that a lowercase g is going to be recessive, and that's always true. All of the capital letters are dominant, and all the lowercase letters are recessive. Okay, so it's telling us again those three genotypes that we talked about. You can be homozygous dominant, you can be homozygous recessive, or you can be heterozygous. Those are the three different genotypes that we have. And then this is super important. The green hair is dominant over gold hair. That is something that we will need when we are looking at our phenotypes. Okay, so when looking at these questions, the first thing that I like to do is look at what the words actually tell us. Okay, we know prefixes here. So we know that homo means same, and dominant tells us that it is an uppercase letter. So same, uppercase, we're going to use the letter G. Our first parent is going to have this as their genotype. Next, we have homo, which is same, and dominant, which means uppercase. Guess what? They're exactly the same. This is going to be our cross statement. Okay, these are also the parents. So the point of a Punnett square is to predict the possible percentage of these traits showing up in offspring, okay? So in this one, we're studying hair, okay? If it's green hair or gold hair in this situation. And we're just going to see, okay, what is the probability that these two parents are going to have a child with green hair or with gold hair, okay? So once you have the parent cross or the cross statement, you're going to add the parents to the outside of your Punnett square. And on the inside, you're going to fill in, so like this letter comes down, this letter comes across. So you have big G, big G. Okay, then this letter's gonna come down, and this one is gonna go all the way across, big G, big G. And then this one's gonna come down, and this one's gonna come over, big G, big G. Spoiler alert, they're all the same in this example, okay? So that is the Punnett square. So you have finished that part. You have found the parental cross, and you have solved the Punnett square. The next thing that we're gonna look at is this thing called the genotype. Okay, and I wanna draw special attention that the genotype and the phenotype are two very different things, okay? We defined them up at the top, okay? That the genotype is letters, and these are the examples, okay? And the phenotype is physical, it's what it looks like. So these are two very different things. So we're dealing with percentages, so we always wanna make sure that we're adding up to 100, and if we don't, we're not done, okay? So let's start off with the genotype. The way that I like to do this is I look at the first box, and I'm looking at this box right here, okay? In that box, I see the letters big G, big G, okay? So I'm gonna write that down. This is what I see when I look at that very first box. Now I'm gonna count. How many boxes have that exact same genotype, big G, big G? Well, I see 1, 2, 3, 4. That is 4, which means 100% of the potential offspring here have big G, big G, okay? That is the genotype, this is the letters, okay? And so that is what we have here. Those are the letters, okay? The phenotype is what it looks like. And I can only move on to the phenotype because this adds up to 100. We are good, okay? The phenotype, all you're gonna do for this is you're gonna count how many boxes have at least one capital letter. I see at least one capital letter in every single box. So that means that every single box is going to display the dominant hair color, okay? Because it has a dominant trait. So 4 out of 4, or 100%, are going to have green hair. So this means that if these two homozygous dominant and homozygous dominant parents were to have offspring, 100% of them would have green hair. So this is how we use the Punnett square to make predictions. Okay, again, this genotype adds up to 100 and the phenotype adds up to 100. You know you are done. Okay, so now we're gonna go and do another one. So here we have homozygous. Homo means same. Dominant means uppercase or big. And here we have homozygous, and that means same. And recessive means lowercase. So again, I'm using the letter G, and I have the same uppercase, which looks like this, same uppercase. And my other parent is the same, but it's lowercase. Okay? So now I have my cross, and I'm going to put them on the Punnett square, and I'm going to go through and I'm going to solve my puzzle here. So as you can see, we have a similar situation in that all of these squares have the same genotype. So the genotype is the first thing we're going to look at. Again, this is referring to the letters. The letters. So in box number 1, I'm always going to start here. I see that I have a big G and I have a little g. And I see that I have 1, 2, 3, 4 boxes that all have the same thing. That is going to be 100% big G, little g. That adds up to 100, so I am good to go. Next, I'm going to look at the phenotype, and that's what it looks like. The physical traits. What does it look like? Okay, and again, to do this, I need to look at how many boxes have at least one capital letter, because that is dominant. It does not matter what is in this second position here, because this dominant letter tells you it's going to be the dominant color in this case. So we again have 100% having green hair. That adds up to 100%. We are good to go. Okay, we're going to go on to the next one. This one says hetero, which means different. And this one says hetero, and this means different. Okay, so when I say different, I mean we're going to have one capital and one lowercase. So we'll have one capital and we'll have one lowercase. So one capital, one lowercase, and another capital and a lowercase. I have my cross statement. These are my parents' genotypes. I'm going to add the parent genotypes to the Punnett square. And now I'm going to solve my square. Okay. Next, I'm going to look at the genotype. That is the letters. The letters. I'm always going to start here in box number 1. The first thing I see is a big G and a big G. And I see that exactly one time right here. So that is 25% because it is 1 out of 4. Okay, that does not add up to 100. So I need to keep going. In my next box, I see that I have a big G and a little g. And if I look at all the boxes, I actually see that I have 2 of them. Okay, so that would be 50% big G, little g. Lastly, because that only adds up to 75, I have this little guy down here, little g, and that is only 1, so that is 25%. 25 plus 50 is 75, plus 25 is 100. That adds up to 100. I also just want to point out real quick, like that I wrote this as big G, little g. You do not do little g, big G. It's just not right. That's not the correct convention because the capital letter goes first as it is dominant, okay? But if you accidentally wrote it like this, just flip it, okay? Because this is the correct way to write a heterozygous individual, okay? But the genotype for this question is done. So now we need to look at the phenotype and remember that that is what it looks like. So we're again dealing with green and gold hair. So I'm going to count how many boxes have at least one capital letter. I see a capital, a capital, a capital. Those 3 boxes all show the dominant trait because they have the capitalized G. 3 out of 4 makes 75% dominant, which in this case, it told us that that is green hair. Now that does not add up to 100. I still have this one over here that was not highlighted. That one is going to be our recessive trait, which is going to be gold hair. And those 2 together add up to 100. So that means that you are done with the phenotype for this question. Yes, there's more writing. Yes, there's more steps. This is a special heterozygous, a double heterozygous cross when you have 2 heterozygous parents. And the phenotype is always going to be a 3-to-1 ratio. And you can see that with the 75 to 25. It's the same thing, right? So that's special about our heterozygous crosses. Okay, the next one we're going to look at says that we have a heterozygous parent, which means different, which again, big, little. Okay, and we have homo, which means same, and recessive, which is going to tell us it is lowercase. Okay, so my first parent is different, big and little. It's going to look like this. My next parent, homo recessive, is going to be same, small, so like this. Now that I have my parental cross, I'm going to put those genotypes on my Punnett square. And I'm going to go through and I'm going to solve my Punnett square. And now I'm going to look at the genotype. And the genotype is the letters. So in this case, I see in box number 1 that I have a big G and I have a little g. And I actually have 2 of them. So that's going to be 50%. And secondly, I have 2 little g's. So it's going to be another 50% little g. 50 and 50 is 100. That is done. Next, I'm going to look at the phenotype, and that is what it looks like. Okay, and what it looks like, I have 2 capitals here, 2 dominant squares. So I'm going to have 50% green hair. So this is a 50% chance that their child will have green hair and a 50% chance that their child will have gold hair. Okay, 50 and 50 is 100. I am good to go. Okay. Now I'm going to do this last one, homozygous recessive. So this is same, small, which would look like this. And homozygous, same. And recessive is small, looks like this. This one, as you can tell, is going to be very simple. We'll just go through and fill all of this out. This makes our genotypes and phenotypes nice and easy. I see 100% of the squares have little g in them. This is, again, the letters. And the phenotype is what it's going to, what it looks like, okay? And I see that none of them have any capitals, so it's going to be 100% gold hair because that is the recessive trait, okay? So remember, it's very helpful to do little, like to write yourself some like little clues with the up and down arrows, with the words, right, with letters, looks like. All these things are going to help you a whole lot as you're learning how to do these. So I know that it's a little bit repetitive and a little bit redundant, but I recommend doing that for your first couple times, going through trying to learn how to do these monohybrid crosses. And in the next one, I'm going to teach you guys how to do dihybrid crosses. So good luck with this, and I'll see you next time.